What up, everybody? Scuffy here, and today, even though I've got Nemuel up on the screen, we're not going to be doing Nemuel just yet. That is a work in progress. I'm still working on building up the Dark Angel collection, which is just recently dropped 5 days ago. So, having fun with it. I was lucky enough with my 30 crates to pick up Lionel Johnson. Haven't played him yet at all in ladder or practice. Had some fun with him in the event. I was initially going to buy like up to enough crates to get 2 legendaries, but the first legendary being the Primarch, I figured I'll just table it. I'll save the rest of my gold for Fallen and Knights, because I'm looking forward to Imperial Knights. That's going to be really cool. But all that aside, we're not here to talk about that. No, what we're here to talk about is Lucretia. Lucretia Elunnirai. She is one of the various Imperial Army warlords. She's not a frontline warlord, though. A lot of my deck lists that I've been putting up lately have all been geared towards warlords that gain frontline or offer some degree of frontline. Lucretia is a break in that tradition right now, which I'm okay with. So I've had a lot of games with Lucretia before and after with this deck. This deck in general has not evolved much. Her reliability has remained the same. When she came out, her initiative was at medium, and it was been lowered since to low initiative. However, with the use of the counterattack, that's helped her out a little bit more so. Not just the counterattack, though. Also, the recent change to Goldstone Hunters, which was an easy opponent. Like if the opponent got to go first, they'd have 3 energy. They could play Goldstone Hunters and theoretically drop a lot of whatever it is that you're putting out on your first turn and break your momentum. That has changed. Her deck list remains roughly the same, and her success rate is fairly consistent. I run her a little bit differently with mine. As you can see, just in the column there, I've got a lot of Tacticate in my deck. I tend to, with my troop builds, especially troop warlords, I really like to run Tacticate. But let's go ahead and take a look at some games here I pinned. I got to go through all the practice and event games I've had here. Corswain and Nemuel primarily. Primarily Nemuel in practice, Corswain in events. Here's a good example. This one here, Lucretia versus Tarvitz. This is a Tarvitz, I think, that's going for a desperate defense build. So right off the bat, I see Tarvitz. Hydra and Urtzi Malevolus, as much as they might be useful early game, I don't want them. I want that Duke, because her passive ability, lowering the cost of all of her troops by 1, is really huge. It actually, in this matchup specifically, it helps work as a counter against Tarvitz's ability to lower the cost of whatever card that he's playing. What this means is that I have to put threat on the board. I've got to put a troop on the board that he has to deal with, whether that is through tactic or through troop. He's choosing to use his tactic to draw cards. That's fine. I've got to keep his warlord occupied so his warlord isn't playing cards. And then I've got to get Duke to survive. Also, to go with that, if I can get my Doombringer down, Frontline down, whatever it is that I'm bringing down first to pump up the health of, to threaten him and to have long-standing damage on the board potential that breaks any sort of burst that he might get from playing desperate defense. And then theoretically also if I've got the Tacticate in my hand. So I forced him to play 3 cards there just to deal with that 4/4. That's something to point out there. So he's played 3 cards just to deal with that 4/4, leaving me feeling pretty comfortable putting down my Duke at 4/7. And I think he realizes that at this point now, if he doesn't get an Ambassador Melgator, if he doesn't have another hard removal on his next turn, that Duke is going to remain a consistent threat. To keep him a threat, I'm going to play the Edict of Censure here. On my next turn, which is because at 8 energy, he could play Desperate Defense, and that's the turn that I really just want to break him at that point. I don't mind him having the Hydra out there. I think that is going to hurt my Edict pull, but because I got Urtzi, that buys me time to play Urtzi for cheaper. And all the while, just kind of putting that pressure on Saul. He can still pull out at this point in time, if he had a tactical brilliance and a desperate defense, he could throw out some bodies. He doesn't have that, but he's going to throw out the big nasty vehicle, which it's a shame I only have one Urtzi. But I can bounce that with the Duke. And I don't know if he was banking on that, or at this point in time, it just kind of becomes a teeter back and forth. And this is really where Lucretia's ability to put down troops one energy cheaper consistently, as well as buff them if she needs to keep them on the board, throws the game in her favor. Saul can only play one card at one less value at the risk of using his warlord. So if he uses Saul's ability, he can't attack, he can't do anything with his warlord, and then he can lower the cost of one card. Lucretia, in a deck of troops, is lowering the cost of everything basically by one, which could allow her, especially late game, to play 2 to 3 more cards than she normally would. Some people use that for an early game build. I like to have it as a mid to late game build. And I'll kind of point out what I've got here just so you can kind of see. So what you're looking at, you'll find that this deck honestly is not much different than other decks that I've shown with regards to Latara Saren. Different in terms from the Ogren Sergeant, who now has a name, by the way. Quick shout out to Sergeant Cork, the Barrack Balderston. That deck got a little soft update that nobody noticed. I think somebody talked about it at Bar Night Legions, and we're like, oh yeah, shoot, didn't even notice that. I don't run as many Helios Mortar Carriers or Skitarii Protectors because I don't have a frontline focus. My focus is more on bodies that are going to have long-lasting ability, either through rally effects, through damage effects, or just from being on the board and having consistent damage output, whether that is Smirnov's Warriors, late game, mid game, always being a 4/4 threat that your opponent has to respond to. Chaos Occultist Sorcerer that has drawn heat. If they don't get destroyed, that's fine. If I get a sacrifice and we get a demon, that's cool. But really, it's a cheap turn 1 play, because even though these guys cost 3 because of her ability, this is a turn 1 card I can play. And now my opponent has got to worry that I'm going to be bringing demons out. They've got to get rid of this 3/3, and they burn a lot of resources on those low-cost cards. All the while, my 4 and 5 energy cards can really come to the fold. Now, I do have 2 8-fold brands here. 2, not 1, because you can have 2, and I figured why not? This is more just for a test game to throw it out there for consistency. But with her ability, the 8-fold brand roughly generates those little cheap Cygnus Cult troops. Well, they're really cheap. And late game, that could be an extra 2 cheap bodies to throw down with everything else that I'm throwing down out there. If I throw down Elunnirai Hydra, and then I throw down 2 or 3 zero-cost cultists to go with it just as extra backup, maybe it's a gamble, maybe it's not. But if I've also got a demon that I brought in from the Cultist Sorcerer the turn before, and some of those have the backlash up the stats, the +1/+1 to demons or infantry, it's kind of like a secondary boost, if you will. So that's my strategy with the deck here. As we saw against the Tarvitz game, that was really more or less get on the board to break him early on. That throws off Saul's momentum altogether. That's one reason why I think Lucretia saw Rise and Play, was because of the Desperate Defense decks, which are really get to 10 energy and drop big things. And Lucretia, she may not be using Desperate Defense, but at mid to low energy, she can drop a lot of things that put constant threat on the board. In this game here against Magnus the Red, this one here, as you can see, I've got that shield generator. I'm going to keep that in my hand. I'm not sure Smirnov's Warriors is going to duplicate for me too often in this matchup, especially if Magnus doesn't run too many troops. Typically they don't. So I'm going to hold on to the Smirnov's Warrior. Play it if I need to. Now would be a good time to play it because I can get it duplicated. Although I think, I'm trying to remember, it's been a while since I viewed this game here. I think I might just do the Goldstone, yeah, and then use Ecratrez. And the reason Ecratrez is really, really great in Lucretia, for 1 energy, he's healing her, which is great because she has low health. But then for 2, she can pump him up and heal him. And then you have like this constant battery of healing, which you don't have to get rid of right away. Late game, if he's a 4/5, if you don't need to heal him, you can still use him to attack, and then he's dealing 4, and that's a good spot to be in. So I don't need to cycle him just yet. I don't need to puff him up. I'm at 30 health. I'm already full health, so there's no point in wasting my ability on that. But I will go ahead and kind of bait out, see if he's going to throw down an Astral Warfare with that 8 energy. He does not, but he does use a defensive satellites, so that's nice. That's 2 parts of that combo that are out the window. At 5 energy now, let's see, what do we do here? Again, I think this game I played about a week ago, so I'm trying to remember. I think I pumped up something. Yeah. Make it harder. That shield generator is going to be a pain for him, although we've seen a couple of troops that are a little unorthodox. And the fact that he's not going for it right away makes me think he's got more troops than tactics in hand, especially if he didn't play that Astral Warfare, which is fine. That's okay with me. I'll take it. Put down a body. At this point, this is what you're seeing here too. Now this is a valuable learning point right here. This is one of the things why the Eightfold Brand is so useful, kind of necessary, if not Eightfold Brand Forge Complex for Lucretia, because if you're not careful, if you overextend yourself, and therefore Smirnov's warriors, if you overextend yourself, you could very likely end up with no cards in hand. All your troops are on board. A simple mass board wipeout gets rid of everything that you've got. And I could have put down a second Smirnov's. I decided to use the Goldstone and pump up the Joker Company, simply for the fact that I had the cost raised here, making it harder for him to blow out any of my guys. He still is able to do that, but it cost him more resources to do that. And seeing that Witchfire go out there, I'm going to keep that shield generator alive as much as possible. But yeah, so I'm not playing the Eightfold Brand. I'm looking to play bodies, but now that he's invested a turn on doing that, I'm going to throw this on my Warlord and start getting some bodies, some troops, because I need that. I need those troops to be added to my hand to really gain the momentum here. He's only got 2 cards in hand, one of which is his Whispers. So I really need to increase the cards in my hand and my cards on the table to capitalize here. It is not a blow up by any means. He's got enough psychic energy bigged up, but not enough to do the job right there. And I think I use Duke to bounce Penthu. I feel comfortable doing that. Buys me a turn. Keeps away his healing as well as banking up some more psychic energy. Desperate Defense. That's what this was. That's right. Now that I'm seeing this again, that's why he had some more troops, because he was banking on the Desperate Defense play, which was interesting. I think that might be a thing. I haven't seen Magnus Desperate Defense. I've seen a lot of other Warlords Primarchs try it out, but I haven't seen it myself. And I should have, again, put down the Smirnovs before I played before I used Duke's ability. But these are those little things that as you're playing and looking back on it a second time around, you wonder why you would do that. Well, then you keep it another 4/4 or 5/4 on the board. Just draws heat. He still has a front line there with the Mount Pharos, but that's only going to buy him a turn at best. And now, again, we've got, he's got cards in hand, but he's got cards that he's playing at full value that no longer have the front line. They don't have rally, impact, and I've got guys who can just begin to flood the board. Even with these 2/3s, these 2/3s still are 2 extra damage. They're something that can break a wall, destroy a troop, whatever the case may be. They're extra bodies on the board. And Duke is kind of the key. He's a really high value card in Lucretia because she can bring him in at 1 energy. Didn't get to finish that game. I don't know if I would have played the Edict of Censure or not, or if I just would have kept spawning the 4/4s. But I think based off of what he had in hand, nothing was coming up good for him there. But that's a kind of example as far as why the Eightfold Brand is in the deck. Again, that's the build that I am tweaking with. There's a couple cards in here. We'll take a look at this one last game, then we'll go back to the deck, and I'll kind of explain some options that you might want to consider. Take a look at this, the Shabrandar. The Perturabo game actually there was no exchange there. The player ended up folding without really playing any cards. I think I either saved the wrong replay or there was something else I was looking at in it. This is a decent start against Shabrandar. And I'll tell you why, for a lot of reasons. Number one, we've got Survivor on this guy here. We've got some solid 2-drops that are going to force him to play either cards or attack with his Warlord. It's still going to be a grind of a game. His Warlord having that ability to deal that extra damage, as well as the various random pings that he can do, that he can throw out, that's going to work against me if I'm not careful, and also if he's a little bit lucky. Again, I put down that front line. It works really well just to force him to play an extra card. He might have played that anyways, but it makes it harder for him to get rid of that. And he's taken 3. All the while, I still have got troops I can play. I got troops that are going to do something for me, that are going to make it even more costly for him to throw down a second wave to reattempt. So really just kind of grind down the attrition and hopefully get to a point where I can drop down Ecratrez and begin to heal and gain some health that way. And he is investing a lot to get rid of those Chaos Sorcerers. And that's okay. That's kind of what I want to see. That's kind of what I want to see. So we'll throw down Ecratrez. We'll pump up Ecratrez. That's going to give me some healing, some consistent healing to the game. He's going to have to play, either Sedition's Gate or a Conqueror, or get really lucky at this point to take care of that, because most of the World Leader decks don't really rely on anti-stealth as much as random damage or random hate control. He's burned a lot of healing, and even though we're card for card in the same hand, I'm feeling pretty good with what we've got here. Feeling pretty good. Throw down that shield generator just to throw off any sort of sweeping advance or other such shenanigans, and kind of bide my time. As best as I can, because that didn't last long, did it? That's okay. That's all right. And then do we block him with this Katari? Nope. I think we're gonna use that Vorax. Yeah, just to throw out as a threat that he's going to have to deal with, because otherwise, Vorax, you can pump those up, and then they become, even with her ability to give them healing and +1/+1, they still are useful after that. There's his anti-stealth. See, he does use anti-stealth. And he's going in. Boy, he's used a lot of resources to get rid of a couple cards. He could still conquer on his next turn, but I feel okay dropping Doombringer after I buff up this big fat frontline guy. And the reason being I didn't drop Doombringer is because he could throw down a sweeping advance on that recon squad, or right there, the big old fast attack guy, and then my Doombringer's only done 2 energy. I want to save that up for a little bit. I want to make that worthwhile. He's down to 1 card in hand, as well as top decking. I've got 3 cards in hand, plus whatever I'm drawing here, which is 4. This is a good comfort zone. Giving him an extra card, but it's worth it to remove the body off the board. That's a nice play, though. That's a nice play with Dar having design flaw in there. And this is a neck and neck game. Having not played this for a couple weeks, I gotta say I'm a little curious how this one goes. I'm invested. I'm intrigued. Is that enough to make it count? Normally you want to have those guys so you can play, 2 or 3 of them. But with this, where we're really just kind of going top card versus top card, I can't stretch that. I got to do what I can do. I feel like I should be fast forwarding through this more. I'm not sure. Urtzi was a bit of a gamble there, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure if he's going to drop a frontline vehicle. A little bit of a gamble. But the fact that he doesn't makes me feel good, because that's kind of the game right there. And then with the informant network to follow that up with, if I want to drop that on my turn, I could have done that. Looking back on it, I could have played the Gone for the Face with Lucretia, as well as the Secretary, and then played Informant Network, and probably would have won that too. Although it would have increased the amount of pinging going on, so I don't know if that would have changed anything at all. Mm-hmm. I think that just kind of puts it at the moment. If he doesn't have anything, he doesn't have a fast attack troop, that's game. Good game, Infernus Dante. So that was a third game there. I think that really was more to show what can happen if you run out of cards. I do not like top decking, especially with a warlord who can enhance her troops, but that's really where her power comes from, not from dealing damage or anything like that. So she doesn't draw a troop to enhance from a top deck, or she draws a troop that doesn't do anything for her late game. As you saw with that shield generator, you're kind of running out of options, and that's not really where you want to be. So going back to the deck here, there are several key cards when it comes to Lucretia Elunnirai that are super important. At low levels, high levels, but in terms of legendaries, first off and foremost, Duke Mortimer. Again, as I said, being able to drop him at 4 energy is huge. It's crucial. On top of that, he offers board control, and you can heal him. If you're playing against a warlord who doesn't have a whole lot of troops, or they don't play troops on their turn, you can attack him for 4, use her ability. Now he's a 5/8 or a 5/7 or whatever the case may be, and then he's ready to go on the next turn, and the next turn, the next turn. Last rifle sections, these guys are very good at basically 2 energy. They can kind of come in and finish off whatever it is that you need to take out. In addition, with Lucretia's just having low initiative, she's likely going second most of the time, so she can remove a 3 health troop by attacking and then dropping her own 3/3 troop on turn 1. Talking about turn 1 plays, Jukebox Starsight is probably the number 2 legendary to have in the deck. You've got Jubok and you've got Duke. You've got great turn 1 play as well as a turn 3 play. Everything else in there you could wax and wane on, but definitely McCormick's Reapers as a rare. These guys have continuous repeat value that your opponent has to either deal with, and or you're going to increase their health. Or you've got Smirnoff's Warriors, who late game could come in and turn the tide in terms of dropping multiple bodies all across the board. Those are very good cards for 4. They're actually 3 for her, and that's why they're even better. Vorax is nice. Vorax is not critical. You could put in a no Volturax. You could choose to put in, if you wanted to go with more of a vehicle build. This build here, as you can see, is a lot more infantry, which is why I've got the Secretary Axiarch. I've got the Eightfold Brand ×2. If you wanted to go more of a vehicle build, what you could do is put in, and I really should put in Kaiser Lane, because that's a turn 1 drop that they can't touch. You could drop him, pump him up. I should update this deck with Kaiser Lane. You could put in the supply lines. Then you could bring out all sorts of vehicles, including the Helios Mortar Carrier. But also, to go with that, you could bring out the where is it? The Mechanicum stuff. The whole good old Mechanicum vehicles. And some people might not think about this, but these are one of my favorite vehicles. Is Delta Omega 03. Bring these guys out for 4, but with supply lines they come out for 2. You can buff them up so they're a 4/6. If you're playing a Mechanicum build, you have Laz Taul making them a 5/7. And not only that, but because they're a 5/7, then they become immune to Ambassador Melgator. And you have a troop now that can attack. It's a healthy vehicle, and then it's going to damage whatever it attacks. Whether it attacks them or they attack it, whatever's damaged by it. If you're going Mechanicum style, that's what I would recommend. Laz Taul, Vorax is nice, but then also in place of the 8-fold brand, you definitely want Forge Complex. And that becomes a 3 legendary key card that you want to have in the deck, as opposed to the epics of the 8-fold brand. You do want one of those 2 to be able, something to generate cards for you. Troops, specifically. So if you don't have either of those, then maybe you want an Arcology, which is kind of downgraded a little bit in value since it's been nerfed a little bit. It's still a good card to have, but you want to have cards that can generate troops. Even if you've got something, oh gosh, I wouldn't say Lucas Crom. What am I looking at here? Even something like Cyclorap, that's what I was looking for. It's a card that creates 2 cards. They cost 1 less, and because of Lucretia's ability, they cost 2 less. And because it's an Imperial Army vehicle, that means at the very lowest, in terms of what you're getting, at the very cheapest, what you're going to get is you're going to get a Dracosan transport that's actually going to cost you 3 to play. More than likely, you're going to end up with something like Firewalkers. You might end up with, some sort of Assad Chimera, or the Helios Mortar Carrier, or if you're lucky, you get one of these nice 8-drops. When I say you're lucky, it means you get an 8-drop that costs 7, that costs 6 because of Lucretia, which means at 8 energy, you can play one, pump it, or play one and play a troop, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of options that you can build with her. She's very flexible, but the most important thing is troops. Now, if you're putting in troops there, then that's why I've got cards like Edict of Censure, as well as the shield generators. The shield generator can go. You can trade that out for with whatever you want. If you want to put in a second Lernia Hydra, that certainly is a very smart play, because you can bring those guys in at 7 energy, and if you're playing the supply lines, you could bring them in at 5 energy. That's a strong turn to bring them in at. You could also play out with the Underground War, which doesn't seem a lot of hate, but because its cost is so low, or when I say a lot of hate, a lot of play, Underworld War, because its cost is so low, you can play it on the one turn that you normally would play shield generators on anyways, right? I'm going to play shield generators to help back up whatever card I've played out there. But now, either A, I'm handicapping myself because now I can't play tactics, or B, my opponent can just get rid of it, and he can still play all the tactics he wants it at the normal cost, whereas Underworld War buys you 1 turn. It's not great, it's not fantastic, but if you are playing with a more heavy troop build, whether this is Lucretia or anybody else, you want to have some sort of tactic hate built into your decks. And right now there are only so many cards that allow that. Obviously, you do not need to go 3 tactics, 27 troops. This deck could easily be much more streamlined to be 24 troops and 6 tactics, and I would feel comfortable with that just the same. Defensive satellites is a good option to have in there. I could probably put in place, like if I were to have a couple extra tactics that work very well with Lucretia. I would not say Training Cage, because even though you want to buff the stats of the cards in your hand, she buffs them when they're on the board, and because she brings them out cheaper, that's really where you want to put them at. You want to force your opponent to respond to what's on your board, not be able to take the board away from you. If your opponent has got the board with Lucretia, then they are in a winning position. Merit's Mercenaries is absolutely a great card to put in there. So is the Ogren Sergeant and Command Post. Those are very good cards. Command Post can come out at 6 with her, And now you've got 2 ways to increase the stats of your troops, plus give frontline to your troops, which is going to protect Lucretia. It's a very strong card. I don't know if I'd put 2 of in the deck, but 1 of. In terms of tactics, as we mentioned, defensive satellites, possibly a planetary purge, forge complex, and if you really wanted to get crazy with it, you could put in, if you're going Super Mechanicum, I've seen Death of Innocence on Lucretia. I like having troops, and because it's focused more on Mechanicum troops, if you have Forge Complex and you're creating Mechanicum troops to give them to, but that's a lot of layers. That's 3 turns of playing a 5 energy card. I'd rather just play 1 tactic and then gain the value from it there. The big turn, and just to address the standard Lucretia build, you see Underground Fort a lot. A lot of people will play with Underground Fort with Lucretia. And then turn 1, what they do is they play Underground Fort and Farron's Mercenaries. Or not Farron's Mercenaries, Farron's Militia, right? So turn 1, I play this Underground. All my troops, all my Imperial Army troops cost 2 less. And then I play, this guy for free, and 2 of these guys for free, and maybe I'll play like a frontline. Now my whole hand is empty, and I'm banking entirely on whatever I draw off the top of my deck and those Farron's Militia spawning and generating more. That's a bad strategy. It's intimidating. It's absolutely intimidating. It's just a bad strategy because, as you've seen, if your opponent can respond to that, if they can throw out a defensive satellites, if they have a way of dealing multiple 1 damages across the board on turn 2, and by the way, that's entirely possible with cards like, Informant Network. That's right there. That blows your entire strategy. All your little 1 health guys are gone, and then they can attack your bunker, and then that's gone, and you've lost everything. It's not a strategy to go off of. So I really recommend banking around that 4 to 6 energy pool. It's a good pool to work with her and build with. It's also got a lot of strong value troops. You certainly could put in some good 7 and 8 drops for the late game, and you wouldn't be hurting yourself at all. But relying too much on the quick burst game, it really becomes a glass cannon at that point. It's either high risk, high reward. You're going to win, or you're going to lose within the first 2 turns. That's just all there is to it. So that's it, guys. That's Lucretia. I don't think I've covered all the Imperial Army warlords yet. I have not covered Fail, his current iteration. I covered him day 1 when he had his early release, and I had a lot of fun with him. And I haven't covered Ornitov. So we'll get to those guys at some point. I really have fun with Ornitov with challenge decks specifically, so I might do a special little challenge deck build with him. That'll be a treat. But otherwise, that's it. That's it for Lucretia. I hope that's been interesting. We've got some new warlords. We've got a whole new faction in the game now. So Dark Angels have got me really intrigued to kind of see and play and get things working. I've had some fun with Nemiel. Still trying to figure out Corswain, and obviously I want to get into Johnson, although I think both Corswain and Johnson rely on key rares to make work. So we'll see, but I will get those out as soon as I can. I've still got card-by-card reboots to get through, trying to catch everything up through Maelstrom, through the Malevolence set. And then we've got the Decklist contest and winners for October to announce this week, as well as November's Decklist theme to announce. And next week, you can look forward to spoilers for the Fallen, because that's coming right after this event here that we're in, the Lion and the Wolf. Then we go into the Fallen, and then we're going to get into the Imperial Knights event. So we got a lot going on for Horus Heresy Legions. I hope that is enough to keep you hooked, keep you playing. I hope you're having fun. That's the biggest thing is have fun. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you like what you're seeing, share it. If you want to add on to the deck, or there's certain key cards that you like playing with Lucretia, let me know in the comments below. Until then, keep playing Legions, and we'll talk to you later. All right, bye.